We're back with another Feedback Friday video, and today we get to hear from Lyanna from New Mexico. So she is very new to her harp journey, and whether you've been playing for years or you're also new to harp playing, I think you'll find this video really helpful.
Hi, Carrie. I need help with everything. I've only been playing harp for about 5 weeks, and I'm struggling a bit with consistency of plucking strength, hand position, arm position, and I'm not even sure that I have the harp at the right height. I know that I have a tendency to not close my thumbs, or on my left hand, my index finger, I sometimes leave it out. So I know there's a lot of stuff, but I'm just welcome any feedback that you have that will help me not lock in bad habits. All right, let's see what happens here.
All right, so many good questions. Let's go ahead and dive into watching her play.
Okay, so I did all those things that I know that I'm not supposed to do, but I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Lyanna, I love your enthusiasm, and I know there are so many things to think about when you're playing, but you have such a positive attitude and just making sure that you're establishing really good habits from at the beginning. You have done an awesome job developing your technique after such a short amount of time in playing. So it looks like you're doing all the right things, positioning your fingers on the strings. What I would recommend is raising your bench so you're sitting a little bit higher at your harp. This is overall just going to help that hand position feel even more natural and give more mobility to your fingers as you're playing. And the reason I can tell that you're sitting a bit low at your harp is when you place with your right hand, you have a hill in your wrist like this. So we always want a dip, but if you were to elevate your elbow to straighten that out, I have a feeling that your elbow and your arms would get pretty tired after a while. So that is a sign that you need to sit a little bit higher. That way you can place on the strings, elevate those elbows to create that dip in the wrist, and you shouldn't get tired as you're playing. Correct seat height is one of those things that you really want to make sure you have solidified and gotten right because it affects the rest of your hand position and your playing. And so being able to make sure you're sitting at the right height, that's going to set you up well to build on that and establish good habits in your playing overall. All right, so now that we have adjusted your bench, let's talk about the other questions that you brought up. So you were wondering about, you felt like you weren't able to get a really consistent plucking sound when you play, and you noticed that not all your fingers were closing. And those are really great observations, and they actually go hand in hand. So in your practice, I would direct your focus to making sure that you're really closing each finger flat into your palm because that is going to affect the evenness of each finger. So currently, some fingers are closing and some aren't, so that's really affecting like how even they sound. So if you can make it a goal to really just close each finger flat back into your palm, we always want French fries, not curly fries, and keep that in mind as you're playing. I think that's really gonna make a big difference. So let me give you a really simple exercise to practice this with that's separate from Mahogany Moon. You can certainly practice it in Mahogany Moon, but sometimes it's nice to just do an exercise where you don't have to worry about notes. You can fully just focus on the skill that you're trying to improve. So what we're going to do is we're going to place 3, 2, 1 in the left hand, starting on middle C, then E and G, and then we're going to place 3, 2, 1 in right hand, an octave higher on C, E, and G, and we're just going to play one note at a time, starting with left hand. focusing on closing each finger fully back into the palm. And as you're closing each finger, think about applying the same amount of pressure to all 3 fingers. So let's now go up to DFA with 3, 2, 1. And we just want to make sure we've got our good hand position. Then you can go up to EGB, really close each finger flat. And again, just focusing on really getting a nice even sound. And I would encourage you to really press into the string. Sometimes what causes an uneven sound is that like we're playing some notes really softly and others loudly, but the more you press in, that's actually gonna kind of even out how your fingers, like how much pressure you're applying. So I want you to wiggle those strings enough that you can actually see them move before you pluck. So go ahead and try that. Don't be afraid to play out. Okay, so we're pressing into the strings. So you can do this exercise, again, starting on C, E, and G, and you can just go until you reach the next C, E, and G. If you're playing on a smaller harp, for those of you watching, you can just keep going until you run out of strings, and that'll be just fine. And Leanna, I know in your video you mentioned like, I need help with everything, and I just want to encourage you, you're doing better than I think you realize. And the fact that you have that awareness of being able to pinpoint like, yeah, I'm not really closing my fingers, and I need to make sure that I'm like sitting at the correct height, those things are going to take you far. Like being able to pinpoint what you need to work on, that's going to really take you far in your journey. So keep up the great work. And I know when learning any new skill, like there can be this pressure to want to make sure that you're getting everything perfect from the very beginning. And it's kind of like, okay, how do I know what to focus on? There's so many details that I need to be aware of. But the reality is our brains can only focus on so many things at one time. So here's what I would recommend in your practice. So instead of trying to master like every detail of your harp playing in one practice session, I would recommend choosing 1 or 2 skills to really hone in and focus on for a day or 2. So Lyanna, for you, that would probably be just making sure that you're applying the same pressure to all the strings and closing back into your palm. And then once you've done that for a few days and it starts to feel more natural, it doesn't require so much brain power each time you do it, then you can add in another skill, maybe something like lifting off the strings after you play, or some other things that come to mind that you want to work on. But that way you're not trying to like get everything perfect in one go. You are kind of building on it over time, and you'll find that that's a lot easier and a lot better to lock in those habits when you take it kind of step by step versus that overwhelming feeling of trying to get everything perfect at once. So if you'd like feedback on your own playing, click the link in the description to book your own personalized feedback video. And then click here to watch where I previously gave Anne some tips on her playing that you might also find helpful in your own harp journey.